In this world, people are judged by their appearances. The stereotype is that wealthy people wear fancy clothes and drive luxury vehicles. No one can imagine that an ordinary, modestly dressed person is actually rich. These days, many people think the proof of a person's wealth is his status. But what about those who don't want to stand out from the crowd or make it obvious that they have money? It may seem strange that such people wouldn't want to show off their riches. Everyone dreams of having money in order to travel and dress well. However, today we will tell you a story about one amazing man who, living very modestly, managed to accumulate a large amount of money. But the question remains, who will inherit his millions? After all, his family turned away from him while he was alive. Kurt Dagerman was born in a small town in Sweden to a very poor family. His parents were busy all the time looking for money and food. They spent all day at work, and the boy was left alone. He spent almost all his childhood wandering along the street until it was time to go to school. At school, Kurt felt an irresistible desire for knowledge. The boy eagerly and attentively listened to the teachers and tried learning as much as he could. He diligently wrote down everything that he learned during the day, and at home he memorized it all. He understood everything right away and very quickly mastered the entire school curriculum. And on weekends, the boy, not knowing what else to do, again wandered aimlessly on the street. Soon, Kurt got accustomed to this way of life. On weekdays, he eagerly studied and obtained more and more knowledge, and all his free time was spent walking around the city. At school, Kurt was interested in technical sciences most of all. He was very fond of working with numbers and formulas. He understood numbers so well that it seemed to him that those numbers went so deep into his head and revealed something to him, something new. Honestly, only a few people can look at numbers that way, and these rare people are usually considered geniuses. Such people think broader, not in a standard way, and therefore it is they who manage to create something new. It is such people who make breakthroughs in science. But Kurt was not interested in breakthroughs in science. He quietly absorbed knowledge for himself, not yet understanding whether it would ever be useful in his life. When Kurt finished school, he decided to leave so that he would no longer burden his parents. Packing his few things into a small backpack, Kurt told his parents that he was leaving, then he never returned. For a long time, he continued wandering around the city, not knowing what to do next. Kurt's school teachers sincerely hoped that he would go to university, gain great knowledge, and become a great scientist, or start his own business in order to share his genius. But Kurt didn't care about such achievements. He was an introvert and didn't work well with other people. In order to make some money for food, Kurt would collect cans and take them to the recycling center. He would go to the library every day to read books about economics and finance. After reading all the books in the library, he began to read stock exchange magazines on investments and securities. After some time, Kurt became a real expert in this topic, but he did not tell anyone about it. Then one day, he went into a brokerage office. Of course, they were very surprised to see a man in shabby clothes, but Kurt very quickly bought his first shares with a few dollars he had earned and saved. It was not a random purchase, but an accurate calculation, and very soon the man started receiving good dividends on these shares. Gradually, he began to buy more and more shares and securities, managing to sell them for a lot of money, and so he accumulated his first startup capital, which he put in his bank account. Then the man started investing not only in securities, but also in gold. Thus, for 40 years of his life on the street and working with stock exchanges, the man earned and saved up $1.5 million in securities and 124 bars of gold. All these years, Kurt could easily afford to buy a great house, drive a fancy car, and relax in expensive resorts, but none of this interested him. He did not regard money as an opportunity, but just as a number. He was just interested in investing and seeing what would happen next, whether his calculations coincided with reality or not. He treated it like another math challenge, not considering the huge opportunities that money gives people. All these years, Kurt lived on the street. He did not partake in drugs, alcohol, or smoking, as he was only interested in numbers. Even so, the elements did take their toll, and Kurt ended up in the hospital with a heart attack. His family had forgotten about him a long time ago, believing him to just be a homeless beggar. Only his cousin spoke to him, and he really loved him. He was the only one who visited him at the hospital. They sat and talked for a long time before Kurt passed away. The funeral was very modest. In fact, only one person attended, his cousin. And when, 6 months later, his cousin received a letter from the notary that a will was left for him, he was extremely surprised. He smiled at the thought of what a homeless man could leave him, a couple of cans or a few coins. But when the whole truth was revealed and he found out the amount of money that he inherited, he was simply shocked. By the way, when his relatives found out about this inheritance, everyone wanted to at least get something from him. They sued to challenge the will and prove that Kurt was not well. We do not know how these litigations ended, since this is classified information, but Kurt Dagerman certainly did not expect the attention, since all his life no one had ever asked how he was doing. No one except his cousin. Friends, if you enjoyed this story, I recommend that you watch these videos next.